Well, we may still be raging at a bunch of idiots from Glasgow, but we're talking gibberish, aren't we, Dom?
Yep, we fucking are. That genuinely made me embarrassed to be from an old Glasgow family.
It is probably one of the most embarrassing things I've seen that represents this country ever. I can't think of anything where I can just say this is the least justifiable use of 20,000 people showing up at a single point in time ever. I mean, there are less stupid wars that have been fought compared to this fucking debacle of 20,000 Rangers fans all showing up in the middle of Glasgow
Yeah,
city centre to drunkenly celebrate winning the kickball tournament.
yeah,
Fuck
and
me.
it's the the trending tag on Twitter was Scotland's shame, and I can imagine if you were in that crowd, you probably don't feel much shame or probably understand what the word shame means. But it was for the people watching at home or watching on Twitter as this shit just unfolded. You're sitting there going, motherfucker, just stop it. You realise that you're setting back Glasgow. Everywhere else is in quickly dropping down the tiers, and we're getting to go back out, and we're getting to meet other people. But Glasgow has been kept. Glasgow's still on tier 3.
And they don't understand why.
Yeah, they're just like, what do we do? Just because we wanted to celebrate Rangers winning?
Aye.
Because you're fucking idiots. You smashed up Georgie Square. What people go to Glasgow, young, old. You go to Glasgow, you pass through Georgie Square. It's just you can't get away from it.
It is attached directly to the biggest train station in Glasgow.
Yeah,
It is 90% of
and
people have passed through George Square at some point.
yeah, and it has one of the biggest memorials in Glasgow.
It's
People
also
stop there
just
and eat their
fucking
lunch.
beautiful, like hands down. That's
Yeah,
where I started the half marathon for Glasgow, and it
yeah.
is just a nice place to be. It's a great
Whenever
communal area.
whenever I go to Glasgow and it's quite sunny, uh, obviously in days of yore before the world ended, uh, we would, if it was sunny, we would get our lunch and we'd sit in George Square because that's what everybody did. It's just such a beautiful place to go to. I met my rugby team, the Glasgow Warriors, there when they won the Guinness or I think it was the Heineken Pro 14 at the time. When they Heineken Pro 12, sorry, we'd lost. We didn't have the additional two teams to make it the Pro 14. They won the title that year, so they were doing a kind of walkthrough in a well measured fashion. Rugby fans very respectable, and when the Rangers fans met in George Square, they were beating the shit out of each other. Do you want to know what happened to me, Colin, when I met my fellow Glasgow Warriors supporters when the Glasgow Warriors won the title?
You got like a crushed shoulder from all the hugs.
Pretty much, yeah. I got a sore hand from shaking hands, and a guy came up to me and said, "I like that shirt, man. How does it fit you? Because I hear the new Macron shirts are a bit tight on the larger gent." And I had a pleasant conversation with a Canadian Glasgow fan, Glasgow Warriors fan. You never get that in
Yeah,
a Rangers meet up,
it
and
was all out street fight. It started as a party, got incredibly drunk, and turned into an all out street fight that the
yeah,
world got to see on Twitter because of people taking video from like the fourth story buildings.
yeah, men and women pissing and shitting in the street, guys fighting, everybody, people trying to get into taxis, then the supporters jumping into the taxi, shouting at the taxi drivers, "Go home, you slurs," flying left, right, and centre. I genuinely think what you said, because we text back and forth about this shit, and we just kind of, like most people, hung our heads in shame at this site, just going, "We can't believe this kind of shit still happens." But you suggested that Glasgow Rangers, the football club, should have to pay for the cleanup and the unavoidable outbreak that's going to happen because of these fucking idiots.
Yeah, I personally put forward that I think Glasgow Rangers as a club, as a reaction to their fans' behaviour, should be forced to pay for the cleanup, the extra overtime acquired by the Scottish Police, and then the NHS bill for Glasgow for the weekend, because
Yep.
that is all on you. And I've heard some stuff about there being the club contacting like Greater Scotland Police and saying this has happened before. It happened with Glasgow Rangers before earlier in the year. They won something else, so they passed a certain point in the league. I think it was when they knew they were going to win the league. It kicked off then, and they said it's going to happen again. Celtic had the same issue. I think they won another tournament earlier on in the year. They beat Rangers to that, so they had a wee march and a parade and a wee sing song and whatever. And I really want these clubs to be hammered, basically, because it's it's these two like clans of Glasgow have ruined Scottish football for a long time. It
Oh, yeah.
was, I mean, there was a period before, and this is weird because it's a period that you and I don't remember. It's from the before time, not the now
Yeah.
time, where the previous two top teams were Dundee United and Aberdeen, and you never heard of shit like this kicking off back then.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird state of affairs because Glasgow and Rangers and Celtic, the two and only big names in football in Glasgow, and arguably in Scotland, that right now they're two monoliths of Scottish football. They just got bigger and bigger and essentially brought in huge names to football, and just the like old grudges run deep. No one could. I bet if you pulled over a Rangers fan or a Celtic fan, if they could form a sentence, they wouldn't be able to tell you how this feud started.
They just know there's a feud, and it's tied into every aspect of Scottish like social life. It is the T-shirt you wear, like when you go to bed at night. It is the like, I've seen people with like Rangers and Celtic like face masks during COVID. It is the family that you're raised in. It is the family across the road that you don't like anymore. It's tied into the religious aspects of Catholicism versus Protestantism in Scotland, which has been a like massive issue, especially in the last like 40 years. And it has all centered around these two football teams that just decide, fuck it, the rules don't apply, party time. And the fans just say, yeah, let's go along, let's just have a riot and get everyone to clean up. Because the day afterwards, there's a protest against the Israeli-Pakistan, like the Israeli offensive into Pakistan. Or, not Pakistan, Palestine.
Palestine, yeah.
It's just...
I mean, just to kind of put a full stop on what you said there about how it's how you're raised. I've heard of people, who've gotten divorced. I mean, first and foremost, right, these people have hidden their support from the other teams from each other for a while. They've gotten divorced, say 6 months into their marriage, because it comes around to football season again, and they go, I'm going to go and see a Rangers game. Like, what do you mean you're going to go see a Rangers game? You're going to go and see a Celtic game. Then people have gotten divorced. It gets to
that just sounds like a shitty marriage.
Fever pitches. Yeah, I mean, they probably got drunk, but it was always something that I tended to avoid, because I go through to Glasgow often, as is my want, because my parents were born and raised there. They've instilled, Glasgow is a good place. I always love going there, but if someone ever asks you what football team you support or what your favourite colour is, always just say something vague. I always say, I don't like football. I'm a rugby fan. I just go, mate, I prefer Glasgow Warriors, because it's just saying, you like a Glasgow team. That's enough to get you away with it. Or if you say, what's your favourite colour? White. There's white in our jerseys, so we'll let you away with that.
Actually, there's white in both jerseys. That's a good one. I like it.
Exactly. Just white, because it's the essence of all colours. No, that's too highbrow. You can't say that to a Rangers fan.
No,
probably just look back at you and smash your head with an empty bottle.
For an old farm, you say white. It's shiny.
Yeah.
Oh, white shiny, white good.
White shiny.
White shiny, white good. There we go. There's the episode title.
No.
Yeah, maybe not. No, think about it. Think for half a second, you're like, not feeling it.
As much as we've said in the past that we're allies of the Black Lives Matter movement and are major advocates for anti-Asian hate, I don't think we can call our podcast white shiny, or whatever the hell you want to call it.
White shiny. We could get away with white shiny. Maybe not white shiny, white good. I think we...
Yeah. We're for, we're trying to put out that white people shouldn't do this thing. We shouldn't then go white shiny, white power. White shiny, white good.
White shiny, white power full. Ooh, nope, still bad. Nope, still bad.
Nope, can't do
that. Speaking of things we can't do anymore, we can't avoid the topic of the passing of one of the greatest mangaka ever. We've been fans of his work on some level, I mean, for years. There was once upon a time this mythical thing called Berserk, which was about a guy with a big sword hitting people. And I was like, that sounds cool. I'll check that out someday. And I went back to watching Dragon Ball Z. And then eventually got around to this old anime from back in the day that I was told was going to be the best thing ever. as long as I skipped episode 1 and then left that for the end. But if I watched episodes 2 through 25, I would experience one of the greatest stories ever told, and then find out that that was only part of it. And that was my opening experience of Berserk, which was written by Kentaro Miura, who died on the 6th of May 2021 following an aortic dissection, which is a tearing of the aorta in the heart. And for 2 weeks, his family have been in private mourning before it was announced worldwide that he'd passed. And yeah, it has been an uncomfortable week since we found out that news. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I think it hit me harder than I was expecting it to, because Berserk is up there, man, in terms of my favourite. I mean, Dragon Ball Z will always hold that top spot because it was the first anime that I ever watched, but, you know, Berserk is a very close second, even topping off stuff like Cowboy Bebop and Gundam Wing, which I fucking love all those shows. But there's just something special about Berserk because obviously the big, front of shop attraction is, Guts and his, titanic strength and his ability to take down demons and all the different grotesque forms, and the art and the action is I'd say is the main draw to it. But then when you start getting into it a bit more, there's themes of loss, themes of depression, themes of with Griffiths especially, there's this theme of I am better than you, or I am better than this planet, my aspirations are better than you, I shall ascend. And then you start getting sucked into the story all that more. And I found out about Berserk in my very early 20s, and at that point I was kind of finding myself, kind of just, a bit lost, didn't really know what I wanted to do then, because I was just kind of, I want to do this for me, when am I going to get to, when am I going to get the time to shine? But then after watching Berserk, it kind of put it in perspective, like, nah, you know what, there's time for you, but just, get some money in your pocket and, stop worrying about you so much and, be able to be there for other people. And that kind of kicked it into perspective as to what I should do. And it was very formative, very thought provoking. And I remember after the first episode, because I didn't do what you did. I didn't do the two onward. I just watched it all the way through, and I kind of took it as the first episode was just current timeline. Then he's flashing back to it.
Yeah.
This is him remembering the halcyon days, the good days before the ultimate shitstorm that is the final episode.
Golden Age, you might say.
The Golden Age, yep, very, very apt, because that's what the movies are called. And the movies, they just took the original series and just fucking put it on an insane degree. This is what I think Dragon Ball Z Kai should have been. Just, movies for each saga, just condense that shit, because if you cut out a lot of the filler in Dragon Ball Z, it would roughly be about a movie's length. And what was your sort of initial thoughts when you first seen Berserk? What did you think of it?
My first impression was actually not that great. It was
really
just based on the art style I was used to, much more fluid animation style, and I didn't appreciate it as much as I would grow to appreciate it towards the end of the show. Like, we're talking about episodes like the first 3-4 episodes I watched, I'm like, okay, there's a good story here. There's something here. The characters are interesting. I like the way they're telling stories. The action scenes are just very 90s. And as someone who doesn't particularly love that 80s, 90s aesthetic to anime, because you'll see a marked difference. If you go and look at stuff from the 80s and 90s, there are things that are done to make animation more efficient. And then once computers or once better animation techniques get developed over time, things become a lot better in terms of the actual animation quality itself. So that was a bit of a gap there that I had to cross to actually enjoy the show. And when I get deep in the woods for the show, around episode 12 to 18, I'm all in on the story. I want to see how all these pieces come together, how I know they're going to break apart one day, because Berserk is so ubiquitous. It is being spoiled for you already at some point. We're going to try and avoid the spoilers and stuff here just because this is more about our relation to Berserk and remembering Miura. I don't think we can really spoil the show for you more than it probably has been just by accident. It's a pop culture juggernaut. Someone's probably accidentally told you about the ending before you've even found out about it.
Yeah.
But once I got into the show, it starts to really be about Guts surviving and moving on for me. It's not that he leaves everyone behind, it's that he finds out who he is and he moves forward with his plans and overcomes what happens in his past to be the man he wants to be someday. And knowing that he might never get there, but he's still going to put one foot in front of the other. And it's interesting. And one thing that we've talked about this before is that as bigger guys, we rarely see the big guy get an interesting story. I mean, we joked about it with the Mountain and the Viper fight during Game of Thrones. The idea that the big guy gets to win. It's a Pyrrhic victory. It kills him almost, or does kill him, but he wins. He wins a fight, and big guys don't get to win fights. Berserk is the show where the big guy gets to win a lot, but still loses a lot as well.
Yeah, it's it also kind of shows you that the big guy isn't just this, me hit things. There can be pathos to your, 6 foot sword swinging muscle man. There can be different aspects to the character other than just me smash. Me no like demons. Me can kill demons.
Although for the record, he does smash the shit out of stuff.
Oh yeah, in the Golden Age movie 1, he cuts the shit out of another man mountain. Was it Bazoza or something like that? The giant kind of the knight with the axe.
Yeah, the first kind of knight captain he meets at the age of like 18.
Yeah, he's not an old man. He's still a very young man at this point, and he fucks that guy, like cuts him in half.
Yeah, there's a lot of Guts cutting people in half in the show, and it's just to show he is miles above the common soldier. He is a force unto himself and will stop a cavalry charge by himself if needs be, mostly by hitting half the people involved with a giant sword. But it's more to do with, when you look at the actual story, it's more to do with why he would step onto a battlefield in the first place, knowing that he is inches away from death at any moment.
Yeah. And I always took, I mean, you might have a different interpretation on that, but I always took that as he doesn't need to fight for other people, but he realizes that there's some shit out there that the regular person can't fight, especially in later episodes when shit starts to really unfold. He thinks that these people will die. I don't care, but at the same time, I hate the thing that they're fighting, so I'm going to take that hit for them.
Yeah.
Because I can get back up from it. They won't be able to.
Well, for a lot of the initial Golden Age arc, it is mostly to do with Guts as a member of the Band of the Hawk, who are a mercenary group that adopt him under their leader, Griffith, who is a incredibly charismatic man with dreams of knightly, noble ambition. He wants to be a lord someday, despite being born in relative obscurity, which is something that just doesn't happen. So he's going to get there by hook, by crook, and by bloodshed in massive amounts. And I look at, initially, what starts off is just kind of being like an oath that Guts takes. I mean, he's beaten by Griffith in a sword fight, and he is therefore bonded to Griffith by honour and duty to the oath. Over time, during the Golden Age arc, it becomes about being willing to step on there for the friends that he makes in the Band of the Hawk. Afterwards, the show becomes more about a kind of demonic hunting of Guts and different people. And I think then it's when he realises, that's when he steps in and says, I must fight because it's the right thing to do. And he takes all the skills and all the power that he has from earlier parts of the manga and the storytelling and puts it solely towards killing his target and ending the demonic hunt that he's been subjected to. And I think that might be, in a sense, when he's talking about like how he doesn't find a purpose, he must have his own dreams, his own ambitions. And what I think might be one of the most iconic speeches of the show is about having your own dream, your own ambition, your own goals. That's what defines a man. That, for me, when you get to the point of Guts having a target and realizing what he has to do, that's when he becomes who he has to be as a person. And I think gravitating towards that, that turning point in the story is what led me to getting the Mark of the Sacrifice, which is probably the most iconic part of the Berserk lore, which is the brand that's placed on Guts. That is what draws the target of these demonic hunters to him. I have that on my chest for a reason, and it's because of the message that it left me, the feeling that it leaves me with when it comes to the Berserk story. And that's it's when I say like it starts off like I didn't enjoy the initial exposure to Berserk, but then it grows on you over time. That's what it leaves you with over the course of like 25 episodes.
Yeah, it definitely leaves quite an impression on you, because while just say for example, if you don't really sympathize, or you don't really sympathize with the character Guts. You think it is just a bit of a meathead. There are still plenty of other, very well fleshed out characters within them that within themselves that are within the story that are there for you to pick up on. Like Casca, she is she's Griffith's sort of lieutenant in the Band of the Hawk. She's constantly struggling to be noticed by Griffiths despite her skill with a sword or skill in the battlefield. And there's plenty to go off of that. And then there's the character of Corcus, who is basically in the same boat. It's just like, well, why is this guy getting all the attention off of Griffiths? So there's all these other characters that you can jump into, and you go, right, I prefer it from this guy's standard.
There's a believable group dynamic.
Yeah. Or if you're just along for the ride and just want to watch all these characters develop, you can take the viewpoint of Pippin, he's just happy to be there. He's just this giant, like bigger than Guts, but he's just happy to be there. He's always smiling.
Yeah. I think that is part of what makes it so easy to attach yourself to the story, is watching all these characters survive and push forward and work for each other, either to greater or lesser extents, to help each other out, and maybe just live through the next day, and maybe one day they'll get their farm away from it all, and they'll settle down with a dog and a wife, and have the kids and all that, and live a happy life. But you're here for not only the suffering that they'll have to endure to get to their goals, but to see how they come together as better people. And that's what a lot of people walk away from the show with that feeling. And then that's why they pick up the massive manga, which has been in production since the 1980s, believe it or not. And it has all been penned by hand, written, and drawn by Kentaro Miura. And with his passing, there's an unfortunate question that we have to answer, and that is what's next, because there's a lot of people who believe that without Miura, the show does not go on.
And I think to an extent, I mean, as much as I think in general, we who imbibe the pop culture are want to do, we are kind of greedy when it comes to story. We love a good story. We always want more. Prime example, when Good Omens came out, the Neil Gaiman, Terry Pratchett book, there was only ever going to be one series on Amazon Prime, but the impact that the first series had, people kept lobbying for more. We always want more of a good thing, which I think is kind of a fault of human beings right now. Take Stranger Things. Most people said it should have ended season 1. I don't really agree. It's a good show. Let it keep going. But at the same time, with Berserk, we need to tread very carefully, because it's Miura's vision. It is his, at this point, 41-year-old baby that he's birthed and carried through his life. How it ends should be up to him, but if done right and respectfully, I can see people being okay with it ending. But ultimately, I think the best thing to do would just be to leave it where it lies.
Yeah, I understand that perspective, and I have a lot of people that I really look up to in like manga and the review like groups that former into anime and stuff like that. People that I really respect, and when they say it has to end, it can't be taken forward, and I'm like, I don't know, because I am in two minds when it comes to sequels. I used to rail against bad sequels and how they ruined properties that I loved, and I was there as well. But at a certain point, I realized that a bad sequel does not take away from the original experience. If someone makes a bad fourth movie from a trilogy you love, you can still have that trilogy you love. And I think you can kind of have your cake and eat it too in this situation, where you can leave Berserk as it is for the fans who insist that a Miura-only version must exist and that must be it and everything and all that there ever was and will be. And then you can continue on afterwards with what he left behind. Now, that obviously requires there to be something that has been left behind. We talked about this before we started, that George R.R. Martin is probably the most famous case of this. Game of Thrones is massive, and a lot of people want to know the real ending after season 8 of the TV show didn't quite live up to expectations. And he left notes in the event that, being a 70-year-old man who is massively overweight and living in America, that he might not make it to the end of his books. So he and a shared group of confidants know the ending and how all the plot points play out, because the ending is set to be the same as the show, but with a different route taken to get to that ending.
Yeah.
However, we're not sure if this has happened with Berserk. The manga industry is famously closed off to outsiders and investigators and journalists, so it's hard to know exactly what has gone on, what's been passed on. We do know, however, that Miura has taken on 2 assistants that have been working with him for a couple of editions now. I'm working with him on another separate story that he was developing with them just to give them time to grow and change and improve so that they could match his level of artistry. Because when you look at Miura's work, it is art and it's pure, like it is classically art. When you go and look at some of the drawings that have been done, try and find the quiet moments of Berserk because I think that's where it really shows through. It's the action scenes are incredible, but the little soft details that he can put into different moments for the characters, that's what really grows and flesh out those little quiet moments of character between absolute chaos and bloodshed.
Mm-hmm.
And he has been working with those guys for a while now, and one of them at least has said he will be trying. He said he will do his best on Twitter, and I'm hoping some kind of production diary and story notes have been handed over so that we at least get some version. It will not be the pure Miura version. I'm okay with that.
I think it'll be as close to it.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? So I thought you dropped off there.
No.
You said, when you go then?
Oh yeah, I agree with you there. I don't think it'll be 100% pure blood Miura, but it'll be his vision, just maybe tweaked slightly. It won't be 100% full blood Viltrumite Omni-Man. It'll be Mark Grayson, 95% pure blood.
Yeah, and I'll take that. I'll take whatever I can get because this story means a lot, and I'd like to see the ending. I'd like to see how this all resolves. There are big philosophical questions at play regarding the broader story of Berserk, and obviously can't get into those without spoiling the show and all that. And I don't want people to experience the podcast through us yammering about it, or experience the show without us yammering about it on a podcast. I think that if we have enough to end it, based on, and everyone's willing to do it, I want like sign-offs from anyone who might be involved. I want there to be no ill will regarding any kind of future publication. But from what I've heard, the last panel, the last shots, and the last scenes of Berserk, as written by Miura, are gorgeous and would be a fantastic way to end the series unfinished. But I'm open to the idea of them continuing.
Yeah, I think there'd be some slight reluctance from me, but at the same time, if it's done respectfully and it's done well, I would tune in as and when it was available.
Yeah.
Because as you know, I'm not a massive manga reader, but Kentaro Miura has made me think about buying some manga. If I wasn't, jobless right now, I'd be buying a lot of manga, specifically the deluxe editions because they just look beautiful.
Yeah. There is a deluxe edition of Berserk that, even if you're not a fan, the idea of having these ominous black tomes sitting on your bookshelf, it's very appealing. And especially when you take it out and it's that full black leather and it's got the mark of the sacrifice on each one. And I think they're up to 8 volumes of it now. And I was really tempted to, but I want to take these books, I want to use them, I want to read them and experience them. I would be far too precious about how I handled those. The limited editions, I'd be freaking out about anything that came near them. I'd be handling them with silk gloves, people getting slapped for coming too near them or breathing on them too heavily. Like I want to use these books. I want to have them dog-eared by the time I'm done with them.
Yeah, I can see that, and especially when if it is the special editions and the kind of the artwork inside it and what that's contributed to, you'd want to treat that with the utmost respect because another aspect of Berserk that we haven't really spoken about is the knock-on effect that this has had on pop culture. And I really hate the term pop culture. I really, really hate it. I'm against it. It's just, what used to just be general nerd things is now a culture. It's now popular and things like that. I don't like it.
It was nerd culture and now it's pop culture, and it's just because Marvel made
that's
good movies.
Whole other discussion for another time. But its impact on comic books in terms of not comic I'd say comic books, video games, specifically in video games, other animes, is immeasurable because you don't get Dark Souls without Berserk, right? you don't get the Dark Knights in Final Fantasy without Berserk.
Yeah.
Even my Smash Bros. Character, Ike from Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, is a guts type character. He's got the big sword, he's got the armored,
The shoulder armor, he's got the cape.
the shoulder armor, got the cape. He's basically, video game anime guts. There's so much that Guts and Berserker's responsible for, and that is where its legacy lies. And not only its direct influence on you, but its influence on, culture. Its influence on popular culture.
Yeah. I mean, this is at the point where it was being reported by the BBC. As a main, major news story of, by the way, you should know, Kentaro Miura has died. And if you don't know who he is, here's a brief introduction. And if you don't have any idea of what he's made, here's everything that he's inspired. And the list is pretty impressive for one man. And, I mean, to the point where you talk about, the influence of Guts as an anime character on other anime characters. The idea of the Black Swordman is such a trope, but it's still held in very high regard because of the quality of Berserk. When Sword Art Online first came out as a TV show, there was a fucking riot online when Kirito, who is this anime wannabe bad boy, but is kind of just a dick, declared himself to be the Black Swordsman, and everyone's like, "Excuse you? You did not earn that title, sir. That belongs to the one and only Gatsu. We are not fucking around here, son." But even then,
I'm not gonna lie, that is what stopped me watching that show, because a lot of people said, "Oh, you should watch Sword Art Online. It's about this guy who gets trapped in a video game." I was like, "All right, cool. Tell me who the main character is." They went, "Oh, it's this guy. Was it Kai Kirito?"
Yeah, Kai Kirito, and then Kirito, and his username is Kirito, so he's referred to as that for most of the show.
Yeah. So it's this guy. He's the Black Swordsman. No, excuse me. He ain't Guts.
Excuse you. Yeah.
He is not Guts. Do not dare call him the Black Swordsman.
Yeah, and I actually would still say Sword Art Online episodes 1 through 12 are some of or 1 through 11, let's say, are some of the best introduction to an animated or just fictional world I've ever seen in my entire life. And then it goes off the fucking deep end at 100 miles an hour and has never recovered since. The writing the writing for that show never really had an end game, and it shows. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, people still regard these characters who are 40 years old at this point as being almost sacred, but still very human at the same time. And I think that's a testament to the writing of a fantastic man who has done a great service for nerds and people everywhere, just by giving this art into the world and making a fantastic show out of it, and then just inspiring so much. And yeah, hearing him that he's no longer around anymore and this might be it, it really put an absolute dampener in the last, I think we're 10 days out now since the announcement, and I've only just started to return to the feeling of normal, which is odd.
Yeah. It was something that I didn't expect, because there's been very, very, very tragic deaths of popular people, popular actors, popular musicians and things.
Yeah, I assumed 2016 would have jaded me to all this.
Yeah, but hearing Miura died, it was just kind of that, chest punch moment. You're like, oh, shit, I need to sit down and think about this.
So yeah, rest in peace, Kentaro Miura.
Yeah, rest in peace. Know that if it is your will to continue Berserk, hopefully you've left it in the right hands. Hopefully they'll give it the respect it deserves.
But please don't send a sign. You're frankly terrifying, and I don't want to see how you interpret signs.
Yeah.
It's going to be fucking scary.
Yeah, all of us, all Berserk fans, just get a real brand of sacrifice burned into our necks.
Oh shit.
It's like, oh shit, that means we're getting more, but ow, my neck.
We're getting more, but we're also in for a lot of pain. It's a survival game. Who lives to see the end of Berserk will be a fucking chore.
Yeah.
We have to joke, kids. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we have to joke.
We can't be serious for too long. It has to come out at some point.
Yeah, I really worry how I'm going to be as a lawyer. Defending people in court, because it'll be like, well, my lord. Do that name. Just be sarcastic as all help him.
Well, Your Honor, if he's such a murderer, why does he have such dainty hands?
He can't hold a knife.
Look at him, little bitch hands.
Little dainty fingers. Lady fingers is what we call them.
Ooh, lady fingers is a murderer. I doubt it.
He can barely hold a knife. And you can't kill anyone with a pen knife.
I'll leave. I'm not even going to finish the sentence. I'll just leave.
I'll escort myself out. Speaking of, stories that, scary, because Miura he could tell a dark story.
Yeah.
You know who Yoko Taro is?
No, I don't.
Yoko Taro is the writer and director of a series of games called Nier. And Nier is kind of an odd duck to me because the combat and the gameplay is fun. I'm having a lot of fun with this game right now, but the story is some of the most morose, depressing shit you will ever see. Right?
Which Nier game are you playing, just to clarify?
Which game am I playing? I'm playing the remake of the first Nier game. The original game, I think it was called Nier. It came out in 2 parts in Japan. We got both of those parts kind of sandwiched together, but put in a slightly different package over in the UK. Originally, there was 2 versions called Nier Replicant and Nier Gestalt. Right. And then, over here, we got both those versions smushed together, and it was just called Nier. And instead of you playing as a young protagonist that gets gradually older, and who's trying to help his sister in the Western regions, we were playing as a father trying to save his daughter. And at the end of it, obviously your character didn't really get older as it happened. You were just playing as the same old dude the entire thing. Right. But and then there's the sequel game, Nier Automata, which I have not gotten to play yet. I hope to get to after Replicant, because they do, despite being totally different stories, they do connect in weird and pretty cool ways. But like I said, it's some morose shit. I did a mission where I had to find a guy's dog because his dog went missing. And what happened was I found the dog. The dog was dead because he had swallowed the medication that he was meant to give to its owner to stop him having heart palpitations and keep him alive. So you go back to tell the guy his dog died and he's dead.
Oh, fucking hell.
And then, because that was a side quest, motherfucker. This wasn't even full-blown a main game, right? I go and continue the main quest of the game. I go to a place called the Forge or something like that, or the Junk Heap, or the Junk Forge or something like that. Anyway, big, massive, ironworks type thing. Because the whole point and the whole thing in Nier Replicant is you're playing in post-apocalyptic Tokyo, I think. The whole world is just turned to shit, and you're living in the aftermath. So you go to an old factory because you want to get your weapon upgraded. You find these 2 children. One of them's called Jacob. I think the other one's called Desmond or something like that. I can't really remember. But they're saying, "Oh, just you wait. Mum will be home soon. Just don't worry. Mum will be home soon." So then you fight through all these robots. You fight the final boss. You find the children's mother, and the mother is dead next to her lover. And the main character deduces that, oh, well, she must have just chose one night of passion over going back to her children. So then you have to go back to her fucking children and say, oh, yeah, your mum chose to get boned rather than come back and save you, so deal with that. And then the children just go, oh, well, at least she died knowing that somebody loved her. I'll go and tell Desmond that our mother's dead. And you just leave going, okay, I got my sword upgraded. I'm just sitting there thinking, what the fuck is this shit?
I may have had my sword upgraded, but my heart has been fucking broken. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And you have your companion through the game is a magical tome called the Grimoire Vice, who's a sarky motherfucker throughout the whole thing. He's voiced by one of my favourite voice actors, one of my favourite characters in Critical Role. He voices one of my favourite characters in Critical Role, a guy called Liam O'Brien. He voices Grimoire Vice, and he does a very pronounced English accent. And it's just like, well done, you use your sword like you're a newborn with a twig. And shit like that. And he doesn't make it easy for you. He just goes, well, Gerald's parents are dead. What are you going to do about it now? We have a mission to complete. We want to save your sister, don't we? And you're just going, okay, I'll put my sword in my back and I'll go and run through this field and I'll get, more morose, depressing storylines. And then, because I looked up Yoko Taro, because I thought, what is this dude's deal? I've heard about Yoko Taro for a while now, because Argic waxes lyrical about Nier, and if he has devoted this much time to a hack and slash, or something that's not Sonic, I'm going to pay attention, because 2 things draw me into a game. Good combat, because the combat, you're going to spend 80% of your time involved in combat. Combat needs to be tight, and I need a good story. According to Argic, there was both. So I delved deep into Yoko Taro because I wanted to find out what the fuck this guy is. And no one knows what he looks like because he wears this weird mask. And the mask is of a character in the game called Emil. And I don't know who Emil is, I just know the name because my brother has played the next game in the series. And, he's told me that that's who this character is. He never takes the mask off. And he has some weird ideas for story because he, in a recent interview with some Japanese magazine, told the interviewer that he has some ideas for Monster Hunter Rise that are fucking weird, right? Absolutely fucking weird. His idea for Monster Hunter Rise is that upon fighting the final boss starts talking to you, saying that we only want to live. You humans have hunted us monsters to extinction. We may be destructive, but that is no more destructive than you human beings. You kill the final boss. The final boss destroys Kamura Village, where your hunter is based. After he destroys Kamura Village, all the monsters that you then hunt can now talk to you and beg you for mercy.
That is an interesting interpretation of New Game Plus. The idea that like you're gonna be beating the shit out of like these weird alien dinosaurs, and they're gonna be like, "Please, master, don't hit me."
Yeah, you're sitting fighting a fucking Rathalos, and it goes, "Please, I just want to live." It's like fucking. You remember Van Helsing?
I have a wife and kids at home.
Yeah, do you remember Van Helsing?
The
Hugh Jackman
Kate Beckinsale, yeah.
Yeah, you remember Frankenstein in that?
Yes.
How he had an opera singer's voice. I just imagine all the monsters sitting there. No, we want humanity. Do not kill us.
We only want to hug.
We only want to live. We want life. Life, dear boy. As you're stabbing it with a sword 8 times your body.
Yeah, because I've seen some of the gameplay from Monster Hunter Rise, and a lot of the executions are quite brutal. And I think it'd be a bit off. It'd be a bit much. Like I understand the idea of making the hunters kind of reconcile
question
with
their
nature.
actions.
Yeah, and questioning themselves and saying, is this the right thing to do, really? But then having them do these like gruesome executions as these monsters plead for their life, I'm like, that's a bit too much on the nose.
Yeah, it's...
Especially when you've already gone through the game once, murdering everything and not having it be an issue.
If you've got to the final boss of a Monster Hunter game, you usually at a pretty decent level, because Monster Hunter games get quite difficult towards the end bosses. They get quite long in terms of how long you have to fight because they've just got a ton of health. At the end of that, you don't want to be made fun of by a monster for trying to beat it up. Don't plead for your life. Please don't let it plead for its life.
Just take the sword.
Yeah. I mean, clearly the populations aren't dwindling, because you could fight 1,000 Rathalos in a row, then I fight 1,001, and no one says, no, there's no more Rathalos left. They just keep spawning.
I think that would have been a more interesting finale, is that you kill it, and you realise you've killed the last of whatever it is that you were fighting, and it's never coming back.
Yeah. I mean, that could be interesting, but at the same time, in high rank, it takes you a while to get certain pieces for armor. For example, if I'll pick a random monster, you're fighting a monster called the Astalos, which is this big lightning dragon thing. If you want one of its lightning gems, it takes you a fucking long time to get that gem, because drop rates are a thing. You could hunt maybe 80 of them and maybe not get what you're after. If you had to hunt 80, but at the same time you hunted 80, but you could only fight that monster another 20 times, I think that would just frustrate a lot of Monster Hunter players, myself included, because I'm incredibly unlucky when it comes to that game.
Well,
I don't get the drops that I'm ever after.
I wonder about that as an idea for stuff like Destiny. So, like with Destiny, it's always online, shared multiplayer world. You can jump in and out of different squads with different players that are online all the time. But there's these limited edition events called raids, where you're going in and just fighting a big boss. And I would love to see them just have the balls to say, okay, everyone's running at the same time. First person to kill the boss is the only person to kill the boss. And that's it, done. That's the event. Just to do it as a joke for a week and then bring it back afterwards. But to just give
Borderlands tried that for legendary drops. And people got so angry, they just went, okay, right, if it's not just a rush to get the one legendary that drops, you can all get it now.
Yeah. I think that'd be fun as a meme for like a week. Just to try and bring the fan base back. But Having dropped out of doing the raids and stuff, because I think I've done all of them for Destiny 1, and it was an exercise in pulling your own teeth out with a pair of pliers. And I do enjoy them. They're like a weird puzzling challenge type thing at the same time. But I would just say having there be like an extra limited availability to them, even for a little bit, would be really interesting to see. Just even to gauge community reaction to something like that. Because when we're having always online games, I think there's a chance to play with games in a way that we didn't before. And I feel like people aren't really exploiting that in the way they should. Although we'll get plenty of opportunity, because I see that basically everyone has seen the value and the money made by stuff like Destiny and Grand Theft Auto 5, that they're saying this is the new business model, like an online high-level free-to-play game. So not like the mobile phone free-to-play games that you can chuck money at, but just giving someone a gaming experience and then charging them for the cosmetic extras.
That's kind of what Monster Hunter does as well, because they don't charge you for new game content. They don't charge you for, just say they release a new monster and that brings new event quests and new hunts that you can do. They don't charge you for that. Those are free updates. But if you want to buy cosmetic things, they're about $3.99 for DLC packs. So I think that's probably the way to do it. Don't hide content behind paywalls. Just hide shit that people might want behind paywalls.
Well, what I would say to that is the difference is that Monster Hunter, you're paying for the game itself. Like, you're still putting down 40, 50, 60 quid at the start, and you get the experience of the game. So I agree with you on that. But the idea that's coming through is make something that's free and then nickel and dime every little bit at the end of it. That's a bit shady to me.
Oh yeah, that's shady as hell.
Because I feel like at that point you're incentivized to make, maybe not roadblocks, but increase drop rates and stuff like that. Or decrease drop rates to frustrate players, to get them to buy the solution to the problem you make, to force them to play the game the right way.
Don't do the Battlefront 2 patch where they just said, oh, you want Darth Vader? Well, just pay for him, man. Don't wait for a drop.
Or if you don't want to pay for him, you can enjoy a feeling of pride and accomplishment in unlocking him manually.
Yeah, just spend 80 hours playing our game.
To unlock him once.
Yeah.
That was such a shit show. I still laugh at the fact that is the most downvoted comment in the history of Reddit. It's deserving of its title, I'll be honest.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Battlefront 2 actually turned out to be a not bad game. Quite a lot of Star Wars fans play
all
that
the shit out of it.
Yeah, but they had to perform some surgery on
it. It needed some vital life-saving surgery that is basically just tear all the monetization out of it and then just make it a normal game like we had back in the day.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that as much as I hate mob activity like that, where the fan base just has a riot until the owners capitulate, I feel like we do need to have that from time to time. I think Battlefield 2 was a Battlefront,
yeah.
2 was justifiable. But it's going to get real hard now that people know that's the limit and then adjust accordingly. I wonder where the limit will be next time.
Kind of hard to tell. Because, mob mentality brought back the PlayStation 3 store.
That's true.
Mob mentality changed Sonic from looking like a weird Nicolas Cage monster to something that actually could be in a video game. So, mob mentality is a good thing, but when you start, lobbying for things that maybe you shouldn't be lobbying for, that's when mob mentality should maybe take a backseat.
Yeah, I think I'm just overly cautious about it right now because I'm listening to a podcast about the history of Rome, and the pivotal point of everything going from a glorious campaign of just conquest over the barbarians to the north and over all of Italy, the moment it switches from that to a complete fucking shit show is the introduction of mob violence. It's literally as soon as someone realizes, hey, we can just hurt these people who say they can't be touched, and we can just walk around with swords, and what are you going to fucking do about it? There's 10,000 of us. Everyone then goes, oh yeah, we could all just do that, and the city just burns for 10 years afterwards. Yeah. So I'm a bit hesitant to just say, yay, mob violence. I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems like there's always a consequence.
As you should be. Yeah. It's like part of my issue with shit that's happening with Gina Carano right now. She's just urging people not to get vaccines and not to get masks because they can't tell us what to think, and she's like whipping a whole bunch of people into a frenzy. Like, dude, I get Gina Carano is obviously the main thing is she's very hot. She's a good actress, she's a very good fighter, but at the same time, she's an anti-masker, anti-vaxxer, Trump supporter, listens to Ben Shapiro. Do not take advice from this woman.
There's some shit that the critical thinkers, you need to be critical of them as well.
Yeah, but then again, most people just look at her and go, "Oh, the boobies." She has a good point.
She had the boobies, she was in the Star Wars.
She's in the Star Wars.
She in Star Wars, she got the boobies, she got a good point.
She got the boobies. She go pew pew in the Star Wars. She stand next to other women in the Star Wars. I listen to her on all my vaccine responses. Two people we should not fucking listen to about vaccines: Gina Carano, Joe Rogan.
Yes.
Neither of them have medical degrees.
He talks about people who get professionally punched in the head. Don't go to Joe Rogan for vaccine advice. Fucking love the guy.
This is the same guy that wants to shave chimpanzees and make them play professional sports. Don't listen to Joe Rogan.
It's always fun when he fucks up in some capacity and you're like, man.
Been doing it a lot lately though, man. He's been doing it a lot.
I'm glad I'm off the hype train. I'm not gonna lie. I'm listening to more Tim Dillon now. It's just insane rants.
I don't know who Tim Dillon is.
He is the guy Joe Rogan was propping up for a bit, and weirdly enough, he seems to be inheriting the podcasting king crown ever since Joe went off the crazy edge. Although Tim Dillon is weirdly enough crazier than Joe. It's just that with Tim, it's more believable as a joke, whereas with Joe, you're like, he might actually believe some of this shit. Should we be wary? Maybe. But Tim Dillon is just an outrageous comedian who sold mortgages right up until the stock crash in 2008. And spent most of his time during that brief interlude in economic freedom doing cocaine. So that's where his comedy comes from.
Oh, right. I suppose you got to have a hobby, I guess.
Yeah, and he's fantastic. He's probably one of the most he's that guy that when you're being that young, edgy, like wannabe comedian where you're just saying the offensive shit to get a laugh, he's the guy who figured out how to say the dumb offensive shit and then tie it into a point that's actually funny. And a big fan of his podcast. Yeah. It's just him and his producer, and it's just him going off on a level that would make Alex Jones buckle a bit for like an hour, and just whatever he feels.
Make Alex Jones go, reel it in a bit, man.
Actually brought Joe Rogan actually brought Alex Jones and Tim Dillon in the same room for one of his podcasts, and it was actually not as weird as I expected it to be, because obviously we have the epic 4-hour podcast with what's his name. The guy I can't stand. It's the other conspiracy theorist that Joe Rogan hangs about with.
Oh, Eddie Bravo. Eddie
Bravo, yeah. They had him, Eddie Bravo, and Alex Jones in the same room just talking shit for like 4 hours. It was fantastic. But they then had Alex Jones come in with Tim Dillon, and like Tim's just subtly weirding out Alex Jones in a way that I've not seen since or before. He has that power level, so I find him very entertaining. But he's been smart enough to shut up about vaccines, so we'll let him, keep his thing going. Yeah.
I wish more people would, because if you get superpowers, just use them for good. That's all I'll ask you to do. If there's side effects, if they're bad enough, go to a doctor. If you can trust big pharma, but deal with them. It's going to help you in the long run. It's going to drastically reduce your chance of getting COVID. They're not exactly trying to be cloak and dagger with the fact that it's not going to completely remove your chances of getting COVID, but it's going to drastically reduce them to the point where there'll be about a 10% chance of you getting the virus.
Yeah, and
which is
the
much lower
while it's there
than it used to be.
Yeah, it's weird. I every time we have there's like a 5-minute gap of stuff to do in the lab, we always talk about the funniest conspiracy theory we've heard this week. And it's the last couple last couple months, it's all been like virus related or pandemic or the masks are fake, and someone was apparently taking apart a mask and noting all the silver worms that are inside these standard grade masks, and what's the government trying to do with these silver worms? Those are fibers from inside the mask, sir. It's a fiber mask. Are you retarded? We need to know these things before listening to any more of your Facebook rant. Yeah, the leading scientific journal is not Facebook, kids. I don't know how many times I need to tell you this.
I still think the best conspiracy theory that I've heard about the vaccine was the woman in the chemist that was just all, I'm not taking the vaccine, it'll rewrite my DNA. My son said after he was on the internet for a while and he said that if we take the vaccine, we'll end up with an extra thumb. I'm not hearing that. And I just thought, you fucking idiot, a vaccine. As far as I know, I could be wrong on this, and please tell me if I am, because, I don't want to spread any misinformation out there. But I'm pretty sure, maybe 75% confident that a vaccine cannot rewrite your DNA.
No.
Yeah,
As far as I'm aware,
it
no.
can't fucking happen.
Although, if you want a good laugh at the just vaccine skeptics, will be charitable about that term. In general, I would recommend H Bomber Guy's hour and 40-minute long video on the original MMR causes autism vaccination issue that started this whole thing back in like the late 1980s, and it's fascinating to see. He just basically found the original paper that caused the whole scare, shows how that was debunked within 30 seconds of publication by real scientists, and then
People that know what they're doing.
then proceeds to explain why someone would go about making up such claims. And he points you to the fact that the doctor who wrote the original report really wanted to make you understand that vaccines for MMR caused autism, because he was giving you a test kit because he believed that you could find a link between the MMR vaccine and a gut issue, like a gastrointestinal issue, that he could diagnose with a kit and therefore prove your child was autistic with a kit. He was about to make millions off of this, with the stated intent being it's not actually for public use, it's to be sold to lawyers and people involved in lawsuits against vaccines for MMR. He was about to open the floodgates for sheer cash when it came to like MMR vaccination diagnosis. If he was even a tenth right and could make the kits work and sell those kits, he would then start a panic about MMR vaccinations, start a bunch of lawsuits, and then sell the people who were starting those lawsuits the kit they needed to prove the lawsuit was right. That man was about to make bank on this fucking issue. And how it got that far is really impressive, and the extent the medical community, the scientific community came together to put it down. And when I say put it down, I mean execute the fucker in the ditch. It was needed. It was the correct response from the community at the time. But what's more impressive is how it still stuck around. And the fear was still there 5-10 years later. To the point where my mum brought this up at one point, and she said that when I was young, they were genuinely a bit confused whether or not I should get the MMR vaccine to begin with. And they got me it, because they're not idiots. But there was a moment of hesitation there. And that was years after it had already been debunked. But the fact it was still there in people's minds 5 years later was impressive. That's how big of a scare this was. But H Bomber Guy takes it all to task and does a great and funny video about just ripping into these idiots. It's genuinely one of the most. It's just been a blast watching it. I think I've seen the whole thing through one time, and then I went back and rewatched different chunks of it yesterday just for laughs at his jokes, because he's just tearing into these absolute cretins. They're just horrible people. But he really takes them to task. It's a fun watch.
Yeah, and the more people that know the truth about the vaccines, the better. So, don't have a segue for this. What have you been watching? What you've been playing? What you've been listening to?
I have managed to watch Castlevania season 4.
Oh, so good.
Have you seen it all the way through?
Yeah, I don't parse things out as much as I should, which is why I'm quite glad of Disney, Amazon, and Netflix's new thing of giving you an episode a week, because I just, tear into things and watch all of it at once. They didn't do it with Castlevania, but I watched all of it within 2 days. Just watched the full fucking thing.
I may have watched it all in one day. I'm not gonna lie. I just mainlined that shit right into my veins, and it was fantastic. It was a vaccine for boredom, and
Yeah.
it was. I don't want to spoil this because I want people to see it. But I think the fight between Belmont
BBEG.
and
Belmont and the BBEG.
I'm just gonna say death. I think we
That big
can.
bad evil guy.
I
No,
think we
because
can.
that's a spoiler, man.
No,
The reveal at the end of it
no,
is
no. The spoiler is who death was. I see the fact that it ends with Belmont conquering death. I don't see that as a spoiler that much. Right, it ends with him fighting death. I
yeah,
think that doesn't really hit as much of a spoiler as. I mean, yeah, it kind of is, but it's so fucking awesome.
yeah,
It's it was one of the best animated sequences I've seen in a while. I put it up there with the Broly fight at the end of Dragon Ball Super Broly and the end of My Hero Academia 2 Heroes. Just
mhm,
astoundingly fucking gorgeous.
yeah,
The fluidity of the animation, I mean, watching the sound effects, like everything just popping off at just the right moment and just everything being this huge moment that it's been building for 4 seasons and it
yeah,
felt right. Bit of like the characters for the show have always been kind of meh for me. Like there's cool like fun little quirky moments, but everyone just kind of seems I'm not as into the characters as maybe other people are.
yeah.
But yeah, it's the season for like having it wrap up this arc, which as far as I'm aware is the plan. Is
Yeah.
just a fantastic cap on the end of 4 seasons of just great animation from a Netflix studio that I'd never heard of before.
Yeah. I actually kind of disagree with you. I really like some of the characters. Like I think Trevor and Cypher have a fucking great dynamic. I like Saint Germain, who's just willing to, in this season specifically, willing to tear the world apart for his own means. The only character that I don't really like, not in terms of how he acts in the story. How he acts in the story is really quite interesting, but his aims is Isaac, the Forge Master turned, you know, conqueror who just wants to conquer things because humanity's too simple to do it themselves. He started off, I'm going to build an army and I'm going to retake humanity for Dracula's sake. Then, no, I don't want to really do that. I just want to, build my army and show my strength, show that I can lead my own destiny. Now it's just, hey, you know what? I'm kind of good.
Yeah, I was
Like,
gonna
you
say
just pick a path.
it wasn't just me. I thought like had some weird like pass out moment where I just been watching it with a drink in my hand, just woke up like an hour later and just missed where he finished his story. But I'm right in saying that it just ends for him.
He meets up with the other Devil Force Master and just they go, yeah, be good, be good.
We good?
Get
Yep.
the beers in.
Well, have we accomplished everything? Not really. Do we want to keep going? Not really.
Nah,
Do you want a
we'll
Cornetto?
do it our
Yeah.
way. What we going to do our way?
Maybe that's them
Fucking
being
figure that
left
out.
alone for another season of something else. So if they spin this off to elsewhere, because that was the thing I said. I said if that is how it ends, I'm more than happy to just let it be. And I think, frankly, they should let it be. And I think there's a nice conclusion there. But you were saying that there might be plans for another Belmont to go up against the evils of the world.
Yeah, I think just because of how many games there are and how much source material there is, I think they might be doing a follow up something. And I know the guy, one of the producers, Adi Shankar, who I will sing that guy's praises all day long because he made Dread, right? Uh, he is a huge Symphony of the Night fan. I think that's why Alucard appeared as early as he did. That's why he's putting all these little nods in to Symphony of the Night, like Alucard's shield, Alucard's sword familiar, all these different, all Alucard's different abilities. I think he wants to do something Symphony of the Night related. I bet that he would want to do something Symphony of the Night related, which starts off with another Belmont going by the name of Richter, who is the strongest Belmont of all time. He's the last Belmont before the Belmonts almost become extinct. The Belmonts basically get fought back into hiding. It starts off with him. He fights Dracula, but Dracula always finds a way to come back. So Alucard has to rise up and fight that bastard again. And Symphony of the Night is probably I'd say the most highly rated Castlevania game of all time.
Definitely
Obviously
most
the
famous.
first, yeah, most famous, yeah, most well known. So I can imagine he want to do something like that. But I can also see him doing something with Simon Belmont, another famous Belmont. The first Belmont he appeared in the original Castlevania.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also just a wealth of other Belmonts. There's Sarah Belmont, the chronological first Belmont, Leon Belmont, who was with
It's actually just a time traveling Leon Kennedy from Resident Evil. That guy just can't catch a break.
yeah,
Still
he
has the
just
gun though.
can't
That's
catch a
pretty
fucking
cool.
break. He just wants to bang Ada. He wants to get himself some Asian persuasion and have a nice life. But no, Ada's just a big ass cock tease, and she fucks off. Then Leon just goes, screw this. I'm time traveling. Find Ada's descendants. I'm gonna bang them. Oh no, that makes me her my great 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 grand niece or some shit. But yeah, the original Belmont, Leon Belmont, he was with the person that becomes Dracula. I think his name is Matthias Cornquist. He
What the fuck?
basically
We're not going with Vlad Tepes?
no, that's the name he assumes. The original was a guy called Matthias Cornquist, and he basically takes the power of Dracula, and then through years he abandons his old name, takes a new name, and that's where Vlad Tepes comes from.
Right.
Because
Okay. Is that
Vlad
like
Tepes
special
means
lore
something like
just
son
for
of the
this
dragon
world?
or something like that.
Because like Vlad Tepes was like the ruler of like a certain region.
Yeah,
And-
obviously he's based on the historical Vlad Tepes, but
Right.
in the Castlevania games he takes that name.
Oh, okay. And he inserts himself into that like position in the rest of the history
Yeah.
of the world. Okay, right.
Yeah.
So it's like that's not Dracula's name. What do you?
Yeah.
What do you
And then
mean?
there's just
Blah.
yeah,
I'm Bela Lugosi.
Bela Lugosi. Yeah, he could have been Dracula. He was Dracula. He could have been the real guy. But then again, if you're talking about movie Dracula, it doesn't get better than Christopher Lee. That guy's fucking terrifying.
Have you seen Nosferatu?
Oh yeah.
I was say I think you need to sit there. If you hadn't, I was going to say next time you're over, we're going to sit there and watch Nosferatu and just have a fucking riot.
Oh dude, yeah. I don't know what it is. I've been getting horror films a lot recently. I rewatched Halloween because why the fuck not?
Yeah,
It's just such a good film. I watched
it's the
Night of the
pivotal
Living
main
Dead.
movie.
That's a great film, man. The original Night of the Living Dead, fucking fantastic film. Then you get Dawn of the Dead with Ken Foray.
And
Just
that's where I
superb.
segue to say I've seen Army of the Dead.
Oh, see, I set you up, man. I still to watch it, but you said it's a fun time. It's a good time.
It is. I mean the initial like opening bit is just fan fucking tastic. The opening credits are just absurdly violent and just perfect. It's just Zack Snyder gets a lot of shit for his action scenes, and I get it. Like he doesn't make a deep philosophical movie. He just makes a fucking awesome movie. There's nothing you can say about a 50 cal opening up on a horde of zombies and not say that was awesome because it liquefies them the way it fucking should do. And I watched that yesterday with my brothers, and we were having a couple drinks, having just an absolute riot watching. It's more suspenseful than previous stuff that's been in the series. More because there's always a direct threat looming over them. Whereas with like the original Snyder zombie movie, which was Day of the Dead, or was that Dawn? Did he start the Dawn of the Dead again?
I
remember.
think Snyder did the remake of Dawn of the Dead because that was set in the
The mall, yeah,
shopping centre,
yeah.
and then he got in trouble for making the main character, who was Ken Foray, the black guy, making him a white guy. If I remember right, he got in a bit of bother about that.
Yeah, but that was before.
It's
like,
still a good
cancel
film.
culture.
I like the original.
it's-
I like Snyder's
It's a
remake.
great one. But with that,
Yeah.
it's always like, okay, we're living out our last days here. We know they're going to break in eventually. Whereas with this, it's more about like walking around the zombies, like more kind of like the Walking Dead scenario. You know, when there's
Yeah.
season 1 Walking Dead, they cover themselves in like guts and viscera, and they're just walking through like a horde, pretending they can't be seen, and it works. There's a lot of that level of just like tension where you're just like, all it takes is one fuck up, and this whole thing goes sideways, and it does. But they're smart enough to just build tension for like ages, and then blow it all out with like a big action scene, and then like secure everyone, get the characters in, take note of the casualties, have a bit of drama, and then start building tension again with another thing that they've set up way in advance. So it's good at just like build, release, settle, build again. And I don't want to spoil it because it's a lot of fun. But the whole thing of it being slow, because I think you said that was a criticism that came up from friends.
Yeah, I've seen no friends because I've realised something recently that I am, of all the people that I talk to about movies, I am perhaps the biggest horror movie fan. Even some of the people that, if I point them out to you, go, yeah, I'll bet that guy likes horror movies. Nah, I could talk to maybe one person about horror films, and that person's you.
Whoops. You in trouble,
Genuinely.
son.
Yeah, I mean, I can wax lyrical about zombie films and shit with you, but I can't really do that with anyone else. So, yeah, if I'm talking about horror films, it's with you. There's not many other people that I can hear. And the things that I was seeing on Twitter is that there was slow, there was a lot of conversation, there was a lot of just kind of hanging on and but unnecessary slowness. But the one thing that I did see that was getting praised a lot for hot was how funny Dave Bautista looks with glasses.
Oh yeah,
because he looks like a jacked librarian.
I don't know if that was the exact thing my brother said. It's just weird. It's like he's gonna start reading a book about poetry, but at the same time holding an M16 that's just like full auto into a horde of zombies. And I'm like, yeah, it does have that vibe, doesn't it? He's got that.
She's going to put an LMG in one hand. It just, alas, per Yorick, I knew him, Horatio.
He's good, and it's really good to see him because I've always kind of liked seeing him and stuff, but he never really gets the lead role. So having him just be
let him play Bane, you fucking cowards. Let Dave Bautista play Bane. Let him play Marcus Phoenix. Do it, you cowards.
There's parts of this where I'm now ready to see him as Marcus Phoenix. It's more than earned by this point. Like there's points that I'm like, oh, he could do it in a drop of a hat. I know he said there was comments that he made about maybe stopping playing Drax for Guardians of the Galaxy, and James Gunn was like, if he doesn't want to do it, I'll stop making the movies. Because there's nobody else that could do it, and I'm like, yeah, fair enough. But if he wants to go and be Marcus Phoenix, his character. If he wants to go be Marcus Phoenix, I'd watch it in a heartbeat. He'd need to be a little more grim than he is in movies, because normally he gets to be like the big guy but with like a bit of a sense of humor. I don't think Marcus really has that, at least not for the majority of the stuff. Like he's allowed a quip a movie at most, but like you'd have to limit the writing to that.
Yeah, he definitely, Marcus gets funnier in the second outing, but in the first one he's out of prison. He doesn't want to help.
Yeah.
But he's doing it because, well, what the fuck else am I going to do? You busted me out of prison. So he's quite somber. But in 2, 3, and to an extent 4 and 5, he kind of ups the yucks.
Yeah, there's one thing you say like unnecessary about the Army of the Dead, and there was one kind of like fake, like, oh, I can't believe we're not going to have a relationship type moment, and I'm like, I don't give a shit. Shut up. And it's someone having like a complete kind of, we were supposed to have something special. We could have been together. And I'm like, there is a zombie horde outside. This can wait 15 minutes for the chopper. Shut the fuck up. Soldier, grab your gun, point it at the zombies, and pull the fucking trigger. Shut it. And it was just like, I don't know why this is here, but the like whiplash you get from what happens next is more than justifiable for why they set up such a weird melodramatic scene. It was a really good time, and I'd recommend it. It's good to have the Of the Dead franchise back, because I feel like the zombie discussion was completely lost from those after like Land of the Dead. I talked on the podcast before about Dawn of the Dead Bloodlines, which now that I look back on it, I'm now looking at it going, I feel that movie was quite disrespectful in a way, because it was released, it must have been filmed during the time of George Romero's death and released within like 9 months to a year of his passing. And just completely fucking garbage movie that ruined the legacy of a fantastic franchise, following on from like Land of the Dead and like Zack Snyder, Dawn of the Dead, and then the original movies before that. Like I don't know if you ever, I actually rewatched the trailer for Night of the Living Dead, like the original one, and it's fascinating. It's a weird time capsule as to how you make a trailer for a movie that old and sell like schlock horror to the common masses, because it's a TV advert. Like it's to be seen by everyone and tempting people who might be interested in a scary zombie apocalypse movie. It's very interesting.
And that's the thing about the original Night of the Living Dead. It was groundbreaking in more ways than one. I think it was one of the first films to have a black lead character, and that's reflected in the film itself, because the main character, whose name escapes me, he's saying, I'm trying to help you guys, but they're like, no, I'm not following you. Why would I follow you? You're a second-class citizen.
Yeah.
And then it's all about him trying to, like, look, we're all on the same team here. Society is crumbling around us. Just, follow my lead. I got this.
We got to get over our weird issues here and be bigger people to survive this. Yeah. Well, yeah. And important note for Army of the Dead, the zombie tiger you see in the trailer does in fact fuck someone up. Rest assured,
Nice.
you get to see some shit with that tiger.
Awesome.
There's a lot of like fun moments and weird stuff because I think it's spoiled in the trailer that the zombies have changed somewhat. There's weird behaviors have started showing up, and it's a lot of fun. It does bridge the gap between the original like Night of the Living Dead zombies, the kind of shambling horde, and the kind of contemporary zombies with stuff not on the same level as like 28 Days Later or Wreck, but stuff in that vein where there's like another tier of zombie that is both tied to the original and then a slight change of it. And they're good. They're good zombies and they're good fodder for like great action scenes.
Yeah. It's actually...
It's gruesome as fuck. The movie itself is gory as all hell.
Yeah. It's actually something I've kind of got into more than just the traditional zombie, because as you know, my favourite game of all time is Resident Evil 2. There's different variations on zombies in that. I've warmed up slightly to the fast zombie. I still prefer my slow, shambling horde of zombies. But the fast zombie has its place. The variants on zombies have their place. Like the brute zombie, the fast zombie, the zombie that can jump large distances. And I think what helped that along was We're Alive by Casey Wayland, which I've actually started re-listening to, and it still holds up, man. It's still a very good audiobook. Yeah, and I think that helped me along to kind of, there can be different variations on zombies, because just as there's different variations of people, there can be different variations of zombies. One can be a behemoth. One can be a runner or a jumper. One can be a little guy that's just, the brains of the outfit.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird that it's worked for so long as a like something Left 4 Dead, where it's a gameplay mechanic, but then when you bring it into like the narrative, it has to be a lot more restrained. It has to be kind of more based in something. It has to like draw from something like inherently these people were, as humans, more athletic, or they were just bigger. They were bodybuilders. They were, or they were more sneaky. They were. There were certain people before the virus or before the infection, the pandemic, whatever. And then as zombies, they keep those traits somehow. Like part of the core of their personality lives on in zombies. And I think actually, weird enough, in Dawn of the Dead Bloodline, which I hated so much because they had something that stemmed from one of the characters' past lives affect them as a zombie. But it was vegetarianism. And I'm like, nobody gives that much of a shit about animals. Like, we love animals, but nobody gives that much of a shit about animals. Like,
I mean,
cool your
it
brains.
was cool in Day of the Dead, the third Romero film, because that showed them rehabilitating a zombie. A zombie could still do things, just at the slower rate of a human being. The guy left to read, so he gives the zombie a book. Zombie starts reading. Zombie had huge respect for the armed forces, so when he sees... I can't remember his name. I always called him Dickhead Superman because he had a very Superman head of hair. When he sees that Rhodes, that was his name, the dickhead soldier that's trying to, keep everyone safe, but he doesn't trust all these scientists and their goddamn science to save people. He wants guns and good old American boys to save humanity.
He wants 2 cold beers and a Ford truck.
Exactly. And he actually has 2 revolvers attached to his. He's got revolver bandoliers on him. He's got 2 revolvers in the bandolier. He comes in to see the zombie. I think Bub is the zombie's name. And Bub snaps off a salute because he's like, armed forces. He's remembering something from her. And he hears Ode to Joy over headphones. And he goes, music. So I kind of like that in the sense of, there's still part of the personality there. But if it affects a zombie to the point where the zombie's a vegetarian, fuck that. Zombies should eat brains.
Yeah. And that's my favourite thing that's kind of crept into zombie culture, in a way, for lack of a better term, is that there's always now somebody behind it. There's always something. It's not just there was an accident, someone hit by a meteor. I think that's like the original like Night of the Living Dead. There was a meteor landed and it radiated out some poison and it reanimated the dead. It's now just, it's not an accident anymore. It's someone somewhere was about to make a ton of money and it went sideways, and now this is the world we now live in. And I like that crept in as one of these little subtle digs at people, and it happens in Army of the Dead as well. It actually happens a lot in Army of the Dead, now I think about it.
Yeah. I like that there's no reason for it, because zombie outbreaks for the sake of it, there was something.
Yeah, it used to be based on magic. And you're like, can we just not? Because it's going to get racist.
They explained it in Night of the Living Dead that it was someone said, "Oh, this is voodoo magic," and they're like, "No, it was a meteorite. It was a fucking meteorite. Leave it at that."
Can we just have it be a meteorite and not get weird about this for 5 fucking minutes?
Let's
God
just
damn it.
play the game, guys. Play the game. Don't be a dick.
But yeah, other than that, I watched Bo Burnham Inside like 20 minutes before we started this podcast. Probably shouldn't have done that because now I'm sitting here overthinking everything and just trying to reanalyze it. And I actually just tweeted about it before we started, and I've now realised that it's been that has itself been retweeted by Netflix as a joke, their official stand-up account. So it's going to be interesting checking my phone in 30-40 minutes when we finish the podcast. So,
Nice.
oh boy.
I think, in terms of what I've been watching, I have. Do you know what a Taskmaster is?
Are we talking on the Marvel thing?
No, not the Marvel. The Greg Davies, Alex Horn TV show.
I'd heard of the Greg Davies show that it was just apparently it's like a redo of an original show from back in the day.
No, apparently, or from what I can remember, it's a totally new concept. There was a US version that was horrible,
As
absolutely
always.
fucking horrible.
As is tradition.
Yep. I caught up on that, and it was one of the few British or English made British made TV shows that I will regularly tune in for, because some of the shit that Greg Davies makes these comedians do is it's worth its weight in gold. Like one of the last tasks that they had people do was they had to inflate a balloon, wrap the balloon, eat 3 poppadoms, and I think it was something like they had to they had to wrap the balloon in wrapping paper, all while saying the word metronome in time with a metronome. Like, okay, if this is the kind of weird shit you're going to make them do, I'm along for the ride. And there was one where they had to carry a candle that was on fire through like all these different traps and shit, but they couldn't relight the candle, and also one of them couldn't use any words that ended with an E or had a T in the middle. So it's just this just absurd sort of Impractical Jokers type TV show where they just get to do these strange and funny as fuck things, and because it's all comedians, they all do it in weird ways. And then you've got comedians that were pretty prevalent back in the English Scottish comedy scene, guys like Bob Mortimer, Noel Fielding, guys like Rob Beckett, Al Murray's on there for a season.
All right.
Just doing absolute weird shit. It's well worth a shot.
I do like it just is based clearly on hitting 4 or 5 different parts of the brain and overloading them all at the same time and just seeing what happens to a human being.
Yeah.
Like the hand-eye coordination, like picking certain words while performing like challenges based on motor skills and stuff, just absolutely fucking with people on every level.
Yeah, it was one of them was paint a picture but don't use your hands. And there was no open pots of paint. There was all little bottles of paint that they had to somehow open with their feet and paint a picture with it.
Oh, that one's easy. You just
good.
step on the fucker and then pick it up from the ground. Just say, I had to do it. That's what the challenge was.
And that's another reason why I like it. The ways that they get round the stipulations of the challenge are pretty good. So I'd recommend that. Obviously, I've been watching a bit of Castlevania. I've been watching The Bad Batch. Have I spoke to you about The Bad Batch?
No, but I know it's Star Wars related.
Yeah, it is Star Wars. I think at this point I'm getting more enjoyment out of Star Wars TV shows than I am actual Star Wars, because I haven't watched the original trilogy in a while. I don't see myself watching the prequel trilogy again, and the sequel trilogy I'd have to be in the right mood, very, very seldom seen mood to watch those films again. But the supplementary material that comes along with it, all the Disney Plus TV shows, has been worth its watch. Because the Bad Batch, as its name suggests, is a quote-unquote defective batch of clones, but the mutations that those clones have gained have an advantage in the battlefield. There's a character called Hunter whose senses have all been dialed to 12. He's just, got complete battlefield awareness. There's a character called Wrecker who's just my favourite character. He's a big dumb barbarian with, super strength. And there's a character called Echo who's he's basically a tech wizard. Absolute gift to technology and things like that. And then there's another character whose name escapes me, uh, and he is the hyper intelligent one. He's the strategizer. He's the guy that's always trying to figure shit out.
All right.
What happens is during spoilers, by the way, during Order 66, all the inhibitor chips get switched off, and the order to kill all the Jedi comes through. But because of Clone Batch 99's defects and mutations, they don't get that order, and they see that the Empire's trying to phase out clones, and they're trying to use these guys to basically kill the rebellion, and the rebellion includes a lot of hungry children and a lot of people just trying to scramble to
Survive.
live their own lives
Yeah.
free of the Empire. Clone Force 99 defect, but because they're highly sought after by the Empire, they get tailed, they get hunted by the Empire because they're very valuable and technically the Empire's property.
Mm, yeah.
And they also have another young female clone who goes by the name Omega, who we don't know who she is in the story yet, but it's going to unfold, and it'll be cool to see what happens. That's what I'm saying, and it's just a genuinely fun show. The interaction between the characters is good. It's top notch, Clone Wars-esque animation. It's Dave Filoni, the guy who could literally sneeze on a piece of paper and write Star Wars. This is how Emperor Palpatine sneezed and made a new clone of his son. And people, yes, brilliant, absolute smash.
What a masterpiece.
What a masterpiece. And it's genuinely, Dave Filoni is explaining shit that doesn't need to be explained. Because the last episode that I watched, the Clone Force 99 get given a mission by a character called Sid, who's basically a broker for bounty hunters. And the mission involves them bringing something called Moochie, who's this guy's pet, back to them, or they think it's his daughter or something like that. Bring Moochie back to this client. You get paid for it, but it turns out that Moochie is actually the Rancor from Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi, and he gets returned to Bib Fortuna, who's Jabba the Hutt's right hand man. And I thought, oh, we now know where the Rancor comes from. But at the same time, did we need to see a baby Rancor? Also, did we need to see that baby Rancor get smashed over the head by a boulder by Wrecker, the the Berserker character?
I mean,
It
if
was
you're
fun,
gonna,
don't get me
I
wrong,
think the answer to that is yes.
Yeah,
Clone on Rancor violence is always appreciated.
yeah. At the end of it, they end up best friends, because that's what happens when barbarians fight things. They become good friends with them.
It's, hey, maybe we're not so different after all.
Yeah, you like smashing things. I smashed you with things. We're friends now.
And then one of them gets hit through a wall.
Yeah, usually by the other person.
But so, like, this is, like, it's one thing that, like, the Star Wars universe is always good at. It's always good at, like, filling in its little gaps.
Mm.
And I think with Disney, like, having scrapped a lot of the background material, I think that there will be a little bit of a push to, like, put in bits and pieces. Not all of it, because it was too extensive. It was too unwieldy to just bring it all into the fold. But
Yeah.
to have, like, new projects coming in and just do little bits of repair work in between gaps in the storylines is pretty nice.
And I think I've got to imagine, because Dave Filoni learned from George Lucas himself, I've got to imagine that whenever Disney approached Dave Filoni for a new Star Wars idea, he just goes, hold on, I need to check something. And he just scrolls on his phone, go, what did George say? What did George say? Oh, right, Clone Batch 99, we're giving them a TV show. Then after that, we're giving Ahsoka Tano, who was Anakin's apprentice. She's getting her own show, but she's going to be played by Rosario Dawson, and you're all going to love it because she's going to be in The Mandalorian. And everyone just goes, brilliant, let's fucking do it. And Dave Filoni just wipes sweat off his head going, thank you, George.
Yeah, it's good to have somebody who might have that tie into the original connection.
Yeah. It's kind of like the guy that gets kicked out of school, but he was finished completely before he got kicked out, so he just knows the answer to everything. You just got him on your phone going, oh, dude, thank you, I've got that now.
That's good. I'm glad someone's making decent Star Wars stuff, because
Yeah.
I just kind of look at it and I'm like, oh man, this is a mess.
Yeah.
I don't know if I sent you the link to the quote of J.J. Abrams saying, should have planned and had some ideas in advance. I was like, oh shit, really? You don't say so. Couldn't have figured that one out 3 films ago, maybe. Jesus.
When you sent me that message, my instant thought was, what are you saying? Are you genuinely saying to me that the Star Wars films that you put out without a plan would have been better if you had a pre-production meeting Well, shit the bed. I did not see that one coming.
Even just some basic communication between the two directors
Pick up
handling
a
the
phone.
project. It was just, hey, Rain, you're not going to do anything weird, right? Nah.
Pick
It's
up the phone and
probably
go,
fine.
hey, Kathleen Kennedy, I'm going to do this. Cool. Click. That's all it took.
Yeah. Star Wars has become interesting in a weird. For me, it's just mostly in that weird kind of morbid. I want to pick in like it's like when you get like a fully roast chicken, and you're just
Yeah.
you've done with the majority of the meat, and now just like poking around and be like, what's that part? What's this?
Yeah,
How's this
finding little
connect in?
shards of chicken, just go, oh, there's a little bit, there's a little morsel. I think that's the best way to describe it because I'm kind of the opinion, like most people, that Star Wars should be left to rest for a little bit. Just keep the shows going. The shows are good. Just leave the movies because,
Yeah.
by God, we are all done with the movies at this point. Rise of Skywalker, I went to rewatch not long after I bought the Blu-ray because I've only used that Blu-ray once. So I went and watched the film cinemas, then I rewatched it on Blu-ray. It's not a good film. I don't plan on rewatching that film again because it's just so much of that film bugs me, rubs me the wrong way,
Did I
and they
tell
expect you just to go along with it.
Did I tell you about the thing I had with it was not Rise of Skywalker, the Last Jedi, the second film in the new trilogy?
I don't think you did.
Where it was, I was watching it on DVD because I borrowed it from I think it was my parents and or like my brother. I had it on, and one of the last scenes of Princess Leia, and this is at the point we know she died, and that this was the last movie with all of her acting in it, and she'd done parts for the ninth one, but it would have to be like edited and stuff in a certain way. And she like the film cut her in half for a moment, like there was a split in the screen, and I was like, you did her dirty on one of the last moments she's ever going to be on screen for her last whole movie. I just the something about that has always hit me weirdly. Like, I'm not even that big a Star Wars fan, but like, damn, the disrespect to
Yeah, you did
the
kind of
quality of
fish
this
dirty, man.
film. Anything else you've been playing and watching and stuff?
Games wise, I don't know what it is. Whenever I finish a year of uni or something like that, or finish a big project, my instinct is always to replay shit. So I went and replayed Resident Evil 1 on PlayStation 4
Nice.
because if it's a downloaded game, it doesn't tend to sound like a jet engine. It's only if it's a disc that actually has to do any work with. But I realized or remembered, should I say, that I have never finished Resident Evil 0. Never even started it really. So I've been playing through a bit of that, and it's kind of a slog. There's no item boxes, so you can't dump your items in one location, then move forward to the next location and have all your items there readily available for you. You have to transport your items one by one to a new location. Obviously, you've got 12 inventory slots between characters,
Right.
but still, you've got more than 12 items to carry between locations. It gets a bit bothersome.
Yeah. You've still not touched 8, have you?
No, I finished it.
Oh, you
I finished
have?
it twice.
Jeez.
I finished it twice because I shit you not, I fucking love that game.
Have we talked about that?
We have not.
I was gonna say, I don't think we did. I
We
think-
get right the fuck into it though.
Yeah, let's go for
'Cause
it. I'm curious to
I-
find out what you think about it because it's Resident Evil is your franchise. That's your baby.
Yeah, Resident Evil's my thing, dog. I will defend tank controls to the day I kick the bucket. They
Glad
don't
someone
lend
will.
to the game. They don't make the game scarier. They just make the game more difficult to control. That was a big debate amongst Resident Evil fans. The tank controls lended itself to the horror of the game. No, they just made it horrific to play. But that's a story for another time. No, Resident Evil 8 managed to do something that, as much as I love RE2 Remake, and it is my joint favourite game of all time, Resident Evil 2 Remake didn't really scare me. There was points where it frustrated me because Mr. X was just everywhere and he could, beat the shit out of me. But I knew I knew what the enemies were and where they were for the most part. After a couple of playthroughs, I didn't really get scared by it. Resident Evil 8 did genuinely freak me out at points, which we'll get to later in the discussion. But the opening scene, the opening part of Resident Evil 8, where you're fucking fighting through hordes and hordes of Lycans and all this other nasty shit, that is probably the most frustrating part of the game because you've got no fucking ammo and there's hundreds of these, there's loads of these bastards, tens of these bastards, like 20, 30 of these enemies coming at you at different parts as you try to run away. And the whole point of it is you need to survive a certain amount of time and then you'll get knocked out and dragged away to some stronghold. But obviously you don't know that because you're just thinking, I need to shoot and kill every single one of these fucking werewolf-looking dudes and get to safety. And after the events of the game unfold, you find out that you need to find four parts of the MacGuffin to, expand or to get to the next part of the story. I don't want to spoil the game because it is genuinely what hasn't been spoiled by trailers. I want to remain spoiler free because it's genuinely such a good game that I recommend people play it. It is it's good for new fans of Resident Evil because it has a Resident Evil 7 recap, and that's all you really need to know before going into 8.
That's good.
7 and 8 are kind of a closed story centered around Ethan and Mia Winters. Obviously, it's got Chris Redfield in there, but he's just kind of there as a background character. Like, I tie this shit together with other games. That's all he's really there for.
I'm here to bless the canonization of this.
Yeah, I'm just here to bless the canon and trying to get Ethan to fuck my sister. It's one of my favourite Resident Evil memes. It's just there was the Mario Kart meme where it's Leon's face, I think, over Luigi, and then Chris Redfield's face over Mario, and then he's holding something in his hand. It's obviously a red shell, but he's put someone's photoshopped in Claire Redfield, and it's just Leon going. It's just Chris going, Leon, enough fucking around. Get over here and fuck my sister and continue the bloodline. Fucking love it. But what really makes Resident Evil 8 stick out for me is the different sections of the game, because the first section of the game is pure survival horror, that you're in a giant mansion-esque castle. It looks like the original Arklay mansion. It feels like the Arklay mansion. You're getting stalked by Lady Dimitrescu, which the whole Lady Dimitrescu, I'm just going to let her catch me. You know what I mean, dog? That got boring very quick. It got really annoying.
Step on me, please.
Yeah, I was over that so fucking quickly. Then as you go into the next game or the next part of the game, it's kind of evocative of other horror tropes where you can't defend yourself. You have no guns. You just need to solve puzzles and get the fuck out of there. It's quite survival horror-esque. Then it goes more into action with the last two sections because it's quite a bit Resident Evil 4. You're going through a village. You're trying to fight this giant water monster. It combines different elements of Resident Evil and it makes it as great as the sum of its parts.
That's good. But although with like how kooky and weird Resident Evil's been getting, when you said you fight this giant water, and there was a half-second pause there, and I really expected you to say watermelon. Because that's just the level of Resident Evil's at these days, where it's just like, fuck it, watermelon zombie monster.
Yep. You fight this weird mutated zombie fish thing. But the sections of the games are divided up into the domains of the four lords. Because the whole point of the whole, I suppose, is not really a spoiler. This is just story details. You play as Ethan Winters again, who is trying to find his daughter. His daughter is embroiled in this big plot with a character called Mother Miranda, who is this. She has some connection to the powers or the abilities that were used by the Bakers in RE7, and she has her four children or her four lords. The first being Lady Dimitrescu, the tall vampire lady. Another one being this weird puppet ventriloquist woman called Donna Beneviento.
I've seen segments with the weird puppet, yeah.
Yeah, who you have to destroy, and it's fucking gratifying because I hated that section of the game. Then there's the third one, which is Moreau, the weird fish man. And the fifth one is a character who's been called Max Nito. Because he looks like a Twitch streamer that I follow called Maximilian, and he has the powers of Magneto. It's all explained that it's his virus that allows the spores that he emits to control metal. It's pretty cool, and that's one of the things I've always liked about Resident Evil. They explain the absurd through science.
Kind of.
It's bunk science. It's absolute bunk, but it's cool that they do it, and I love the fact that they do it. Anyway, the second part of the game that you go to, the puppet house, is where the freaky event happens. Because spoilers now, if you don't want to be spoiled for the game. Apologies, Colin, if you wanted to play this game, but I'm going to spoil this thing because it is fucking freaky. You're going through the puppet house. I can't remember I think it might just call the Beneviento estate or something like that. I can't remember. You're going through the basement of this house, and you have to start off this part of the game by disassembling a mannequin of your wife to find keys and clues and things like that.
Jesus.
Once you have no guns, by the way.
Right.
Your guns get taken off you. So you find parts you you find keys and you find puzzle pieces. You put the puzzle pieces in the right place. You put the keys in the right place. You get to go back to the elevator. So you think, all right, I'm done here. I'll go back to the elevator. And as you're walking back to the elevator, a wailing, screeching, squidgy-looking zombie monster fetus comes at you. And it is wailing and screeching and screaming, shouting, Mama, Dada, Daddy, come here and all this stuff. And my first thought was, I'm getting the fuck out of here. Screw this thing.
I have seen that monster in particular, and it is a definite fuck this shit moment.
Yeah, it is. If I had a gun, motherfucker, be glad I'm unarmed.
You'd be getting all the magazines in your mouth right now.
Yeah, full on Iron Storm, baby. Like, just empty every bullet I had into this thing. And so you can't shoot it, you don't have any guns, so your only option is to hide. And you can find different places to hide. You can hide under a bed, you can hide in a cabinet, or you can hide in a sort of locker type thing. There's plenty of places for you to hide, but if you come out too early, if you peek out too early, it can rip you out of those hiding places. And I made the mistake of thinking that I was faster than the zombie fetus baby. So it ripped my ass out from underneath the bed and just swallowed me whole while still wailing, Dad.
I have seen some of the animations for the swallowing, and it is like you guys put way too much effort into this.
Yeah, some guy had fun with that. He earned his paycheck that day, but well, he or she, I don't want to be gendered, but they
women can be horrible monsters too.
Yeah, women can make horrible monsters as well.
Hashtag feminism.
We've all seen Donald Trump's mother.
Hey.
Oh.
From downtown.
I was going to say Elon Musk, but no, she didn't make something horrible. She just looks like a supervillain. She looks like if someone drew female Lex Luthor, that's what Elon Musk's mother looks like.
I've never once been compelled to Google Elon Musk's mother.
Someone showed me a picture of it. It was after a rugby match, and they were just scrolling through Twitter, and they went, "Holy shit, that woman's a supervillain! What the fuck are you talking about?" And they showed me the picture. I'm like, "Who's that?" And that's Elon Musk's mother. And I went, "That motherfucker has killed a superhero in her time." She has, spandex of her arch nemesis burning in a pit somewhere. But yeah, like I said, it is swallowing you whole and just wailing and screeching, shouting, "Dad!" and fuck you. I think at that point I had to pause the game, put the controller down, and I'm going to go and get a cup of tea, go and take a quick walk.
Hug my dogs.
Fuck dealing with that. Just nasty stuff. But it did something that Resident Evil hasn't done in a while, and that is genuinely freak me out. Make me quite scared, because with Mr. X, he can be a bit scary, but after but your fourth encounter with him, he's just like, right, fuck off, you fedora-wearing bastard, right? I have no ammo to deal with you. I'm just going to run around you, and you're going to, kick my ass. So how about we just get this over with?
I think that's maybe part of his weakness, is that he is basically just a jump scare. Yeah, he's kind of intimidating when you see him down the hallway, but it's mostly about him appearing out of nowhere and smashing your shit into a wall.
Yeah.
Whereas I think horror has to be a bit more than that, and I think when you talk about like that monster baby, it's just upsetting to see. It's a giant baby that's coming to eat you.
Yeah, and one thing that I think, because they always call those things the pursuers in Resident Evil games, and it started off in 3 with Nemesis. Nemesis was the OG pursuer, to the point in Japan he's called Pursuer. And then in RE1 Remake, you had Lisa Trevor, who was just this invincible, weird, mutated woman who could kill you in a single hit because she was hyper strong and she had these iron shackles, and if she hit you with those, you were dead instantly. It wasn't really one in 4 because they kind of just focused on all-out action, but there's always been this idea of the Pursuer. And then Mr. X was a good pursuer, but if he took enough damage, he would fall over. Lady Dimitrescu is the pursuer for the large part of RE8 when you're in her castle. She takes no damage, she doesn't stop, and she can lock you in places just by standing in front of you. This is the only time you're going to get me to talk about her figure, but she's literally so fucking thick, you can't run past her. She's got the entire bakery on her arse. The woman's carrying cake so much that you can't run round her.
But you can have her spank her with a fly swatter in a certain mod that I've seen.
You can. That mod looked so well done that I thought that was a hidden weapon.
I thought it was
in the
an
game.
Easter egg as well. Like they just went full kinky with it and just like hit her with a
Yeah.
fly swatter in the ass.
I mean, to be fair, that does seem like the kind of thing that Capcom would put in. Just we know that you're all horny for Dimitrescu.
You
Just
know
put
how
that
this
shit
is
in
gonna go. I know how this is gonna go. Let's just fucking do this.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be horrible? Like we talk about like Chris Redfield canonizing stuff. Like if that just became
Yeah.
part of the like it was made by a mod, just a random modder, but Capcom was like, I guess we should put it in the Game of the Year edition,
Yeah.
just for the meme.
So far, I'd say, talking about Game of the Year, so far I'd say 8 is my Game of the Year, just because my mark of a good Resident Evil game is if I want to replay it immediately after finishing it, and that's exactly what I did with 8. I got some infinite ammo weapons, and I took on hardcore mode, and obviously I had an infinite ammo powerful pistol. It made it quite easy, but at the same time, I had so much fun. I knew where to go to pick up shit. I knew how to beat the enemies, and I knew what to do and what to expect. It was such a blast.
Well, that
I
second
highly
time
recommend
round,
RE8.
after you've completed the storyline, you've had the challenge, you've experienced the game. Like
Yep.
sometimes a victory lap like that with a fully powered weapon, like arsenal and stuff like that, and just knowing what you need to do is kind of feels like a treat afterwards.
Yeah, and that's one of the many things I love about Resident Evil games is that you get to do those victory laps. In Resident Evil 4, if you finish it, you got a infinite ammo weapon called the Chicago Typewriter, which is
Nice.
just a Tommy gun, and it was infinite ammo and it was very high power, so you could just go on popping heads, and it was very fun to do. Same with I think in every Resident Evil game, 3 remake, 2 remake, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, you all got infinite ammo weapons,
Yeah.
and you just the victory lap.
But the Resident Evil like the fun of like the infinite ammo rerun is a total blast because I did it with 5. 5 might be the one I've played the most, and just having a quick run through of that afterwards, where it's like this game took you 15 hours to beat in the first time, and then you show up with like a triple barrel shotgun and an infinite ammo Desert Eagle, and you're like, we're doing this in 20 minutes. Hold my fucking beer, and just laying waste half of the zombies. You're like, there we go, and the problems were solved.
That's definitely what I did in 8. My original time was 12 hours because I got everything. I took my time in Dimitrescu's castle. I took my time in the final level. I took my time running through the village because I wanted to see everything that this game had to offer. I wanted to absorb it all, get all the files, which is always so much fun to me in Resident Evil games, getting all the little scraps of information that tie this shit together. And Resident Evil 8 has a really big hook back to the original games because you find out that a huge character early in the games was in the village, and you just holy shit, validity. But I halved my time going to harder difficulty with a higher powered weapon because I knew where everything was, and I got all the weapons and treasures in the first run, so every subsequent run is just full tilt bozo killing jabronis. And I went from 12.5 hours to 6 hours flat
Damn.
because I knew where everything was, and I had a high powered pistol that was just mowing Cabron down.
Well, that's interesting because now I'm wondering there'll probably be a couple extra little modes and stuff they'll throw in at the end. There'll be like a couple extra difficulties and stuff.
Yeah.
It's got replay value for one go round. What about the next time? Are you coming back to this again just to experience the story, or?
I am going back to it to do Village of Shadows mode, but that will be after I finish Near Replicant and after I've played Monster Hunter Rise a bit more, because I want to. There's new monsters added to Rise, and I'm slowly getting a group on Switch to go and do those hunts.
Nice.
Motherfuckers just need to get to my level, not step up, son, step up. You come and meet my level. Just get to the stage of the game where I'm at, then we can go do some hunts.
That's just good, man. I look at my game library right now and it's a bit empty. I've started going back to Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Just that intro sequence is just fantastic. Might be one of the best intros to a game I can remember. Because I feel like a lot of the second I get pulled out of the intro to go back to Abstergo, which is the modern day world that's helping you like track all the ancestors that you have, I fucking hate it. And I'm looking at it going, can I get a mod to just remove those parts?
Yeah.
To just let me continue with the story. I just want to be a pirate with a knife in his wrist, just stabbing people. That's all I want to do.
Yeah. That's all you want from a Assassin's Creed game.
Don't want to be stuck with a bunch of 20-something millennials in
Yeah.
a space age office. Fuck off.
That's kind of what, when they dropped the Desmond storyline, that is where I lost interest. I was like, they had a good story going. Why drop that for nothing? Yeah. Never got into the Assassin's Creed games past that.
It's a hard sell, I'll be honest. Like, the quality's there in the initial games. The Ezio trilogy, fantastic. Probably some of the best, like, story video game combinations of all time. Just great gameplay and a fun story, fun character. I think they nailed it with having Ezio as the lead of this weirdly elaborate conspiracy. And then, yeah, having it just go increase in gameplay, but then the story just takes a dive. It never quite found that balance again. Except for maybe Black Flag. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention actually with stuff we talked about listening to. I think I've mentioned it about 1,000 times on Twitter. I'm enjoying Tetrarch, a band from Atlanta, Georgia, who have a combination of the original like article I read about them was like, oh, it's like Linkin Park and Slipknot had a baby, and I'm like, it's way like thematically, like in terms of the tone of the band, far closer to Korn, but there's a little bit of Linkin Park in there, but it's a fun combo. And Amon Amarth celebrated the 20th anniversary of like the album The Crusher by re-releasing or remastering Masters of War, and that Amon Amarth sound just remastered for modern day, so fucking gorgeous.
A good one.
Yeah, I'd recommend it. Go back and listen to the original albums, but that Master of War redo, me gusta, or whatever the Viking equivalent of me gusta is.
No, I believe it is Me Gusta. They're deeply Spanish, the
Surprisingly
Vikings.
Spanish.
Yeah.
Right, with that, I think we just have our showstopper.
I believe I've often been described as surprisingly Spanish.
Viva la
Well,
spaghetti.
Viva la spaguch. The Spanish say, right?
I buy like Malaysian ramen, and for some reason they've changed the packaging, but in the front of it just says spaghetti.
Spaghetti.
Instead for
Leaning
noodle.
into that meme for sales.
Oh, it's worth it though, especially at like 30p a pack. Definitely worth it. Right, so our showstopper for today is an adventure into the Arctic or the Antarctic by a group who developed a snow cruiser. Now, obviously, I doubt any of those listening have been to the Antarctic, but if you've ever been to the Arctic or Antarctic circles, you know it is a frozen hell on Earth. You are thousands of miles from civilization and you're impossible to reach. You need equipment and people that will survive the most brutal of conditions. With that in mind, a group, Chicago Pullman's company, back in the 1930s, decided to make their own vehicle that would traverse the Antarctic. This will not go well, spoilers. But they basically reached out to some designers who came up with a strange, like, boxy design that kind of looks like a weird Tonka truck. And then they set about building this thing with the help of some supporters as like a giant kind of PR move. The idea being that if they're the company that can make a vehicle that drives in the Antarctic, what can they do for you? And by the way, this Pullman's, pretty sure they make tractors. So, you know, you want to talk about a rugged vehicle, it's a hell of a business pitch. But yeah, the idea being they make the first vehicle to conquer the Antarctic, or to truly conquer the Antarctic, and it's a hell of a PR boost. So they throw a ton of cash at this thing, and end up with a 56 foot long and 17 foot wide truck that will go across the Antarctic. And one of its key sponsors is Goodyear, the tire company, who put their typical branding of that giant Goodyear symbol with the weird kind of Olympian like stretched across these massive tires that you can see are like 12 foot in diameter. There's actually a footage of a guy like attending to maintenance of this thing, and he is dwarfed by the tires of this vehicle, let alone the vehicle itself. It is a monstrous beast that, as part of a PR campaign, Pullman and Goodyear decided it'd be a good idea to drive it from Chicago to the East Coast, where it'd be picked up and chucked into a boat to sail down south, and then once it hits the Antarctic, roll it off the boat, and then it will just start driving and conquering the Antarctic. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that plan.
Fucking everything. It drove through Ohio on its way to the coast and fell off a bridge. It would also, at max, go at 30 miles an hour. So it would take forever to go anywhere. So the idea being, we'll drive it through the streets, we'll get all these people all hyped up, and then it would take forever to go past because it's designed to move slowly but constantly. It's not like it can just burst out at the speed and all of a sudden just overtake a car on the road. Like, it's going at 30 miles an hour, which made it the biggest obstacle of traffic in the day because it takes up the whole road. Again, it's 17 feet wide. Not exactly suited for
30 miles an hour. That's just, they may as well call that thing road rage because that's all it's giving people.
It was called the Snow Cruiser, by the way. If you're interested in like getting any information about this, but when I say its max speed is 30 miles an hour, to preserve the engine, because you need to be sensitive about an engine that will survive the Antarctic, they rolled it through most of Indiana at 20 miles an hour. Can you imagine the fucking rage you would feel behind this thing? I'd be throwing like Molotov cocktails at the side of the car. But yeah, basically it had issues with getting across bridges. At one point it got stuck in a sand dune. Not even sure where they found sand dune in the northeast of America, but somehow they found a sand dune and proceeded to just show it off. The idea being the design of the bottom of this was slightly slanted up the way so that if you were to find a snowdrift, you could actually drive the car over far enough that it would, like the front end of it would touch the other side and help provide support. But with it being angled, it would naturally kind of basically dig itself out in a certain way. This hit a massive issue when that just didn't fucking work on sand dunes because the back end of it was so long that it would actually, you'd get the front end of the car up part of the hill, and then the back end would make contact and you'd lift the back tires off the ground and it wouldn't have enough force to pull itself off the sand dune. This happened on multiple occasions as part of this PR tour. This did not go as planned. It then obviously had the issue at the Indiana-Ohio border where it fell off of a bridge, which they didn't anticipate it being large enough. It was stuck there for about a day before people could come and get it out. So you've got actual photos of this thing stuck in the in a lake or in a little river. That, I mean, it's just, you're looking at it going, this is supposed to be a PR victory, and this is supposed to be the America conquering the unconquerable Antarctic, and it just looks like such a total shit show as far as PR is concerned. Like, at a certain point you look at firing like your PR people, and then at a certain point you start just firing project managers. I'd have been at this point by now. Turns out it was only going to get worse from there. So it sailed out of the Boston port and then it went south into the Bay of Wales. It took 3 months to get there, and then the designer, Thomas Poulter, said that he would like to take the honour of driving it onto the Antarctic. After all, it's his baby, he designed it, he helped construct it, and he was going to get the project running. And then as the project is set up and everybody's ready to get this boat or get this massive snow cruiser off of the boat, it fell off the bridge connecting it to the land. And yeah, it almost fell off into the water, but because of it being 35 tons, it basically just snapped one of the logs they were using as a bridge between the land and the ship itself. However, they luckily managed to keep it balanced and drove it back onto the snow, so it actually did make it to the Antarctic. And then they discovered the new problem. Those Goodyear tires that they were so proud of are basically smooth. The idea being that it is so heavy that the weight of the vehicle itself pushing down on the wheels will give it enough surface area to provide traction to drive in the snow. So it shouldn't need actual grip itself. It will have enough force to provide its own grip. Worst case scenario, you can always put on some tire chains if you have enough actual chain to go all the way around the tires. They found enough to put the snow chains on the rear wheels. It didn't work. The engine fired as fast as it possibly could, but the tires just kept spinning because they're smooth and you're driving in snow. However, they found out it would work in reverse. For some reason, the car or the vehicle had enough traction and push to move in reverse and could actually drive in the snow. Once they figured this out, they realized that they would have to drive the entire vehicle all the way across the Antarctic in reverse. So they tested it out for 2 weeks and just started playing around with it. And unfortunately, they had to basically abandon the vehicle in the middle of the Antarctic when it just failed. They realized they couldn't drive it all the way back home. They got about 100 kilometers out from base and realized they couldn't get it home, which is odd because it was designed specifically for the purpose of you can take it anywhere and take it home again. But yeah, it was eventually just abandoned in the 1940s, and it was deemed an unnecessary expenditure by the United States because, there was other things going on in the world in the 1940s.
Yeah, they had other shit to worry about.
They had a few small things to attend to. And because of the sheer amount of effort and engineering it was taking to keep this project going, it was left basically in the Antarctic in the 1940s. And then when they returned to find it, in hopes of restarting the project in the peacetime, it was gone. It was believed to be covered in snowbanks and undetectable. They never actually found it. 2 seconds. Your TV's on.
Yeah, motherfucker, I just realised. It's not flashing up with my audio, it's with whatever Gordon's playing.
Alright.
Hold on. I think we'll just have to grin and bear it.
Yeah, but the vehicle was eventually just kind of abandoned and was found again actually for a little bit in the 1945 or 1946 expedition to the Antarctic. And at some point in the 1950s, they actually managed to find it. And they found it sitting on an Antarctic shelf, and they found it had been ransacked and raided, and all of its stuff had been taken out. So there was basically no use for it. Nobody ever actually got to use the vehicle as intended. So it was kind of abandoned again. And then in 1962, they realised that the machine itself, the ice shelf that it was sitting on, had drifted off and fallen into the ocean. And the vehicle was gone. Never to be found again. It is sitting somewhere at the bottom of the ocean.
I mean, it's not totally useless now. It's now probably got a school of fishing.
Yeah, it's now probably home to it's probably now home to some horrific sea monster. But yeah, this
some several $1,000 fish tank now.
Yeah, well, actually, at one point the project was estimated to cost 300,000 in VAT times money, which at this point is now a couple million. Which actually, for the price, is not that bad for what they were attempting to do. Until you realise the Russians did the same thing with a literal fucking tractor. I know. If you look at the Soviet attempts to conquer the Antarctic, they're way more frugal, and it is literally just a tractor. The best part is, they won. There are working Soviet-era tractors that still actually work in the South Pole today, and you can find them there at certain bases. They're hard to find, and there's only a few in operation, but considering that, they put 4 on the continent, and now it's been kind of Frankenstein down to 2, and they both still run about 50 years later, it's super fucking impressive. And especially when you hear the Americans' complete shit show of an attempt. So yeah, that is the Snow Cruiser. I think at one point it was actually dubbed the Little America 3 as a PR campaign. But yeah, and that's the story of how America didn't conquer the Antarctic.
Mm.
But yeah.
That must piss off a lot of Americans. Russia did it better.
Russia did it so much better. You got to the moon, but you got to take a solid fucking L for this one.
Yeah. How shit must the engineers that made that thing feel, knowing that it's just at the bottom of the Antarctic?
It's somewhere. The fact that it was left abandoned twice, and eventually it got so abandoned it fell off the face of the earth. What a complete dismissal of your what must have been your life's goal. Imagine being the guy who says, "Hey, you know how we conquered the Antarctic? My fucking drawing made life." I guarantee that gets free beers in Detroit every time. But
yeah, probably
not to be.
Imagine that guy just every time he sees a drawing of some kind of snow vehicle, just bursting into tears God, my snow cruiser.
I like the idea of him running around in a jet ski being or not a jet ski, a snowmobile, and just be I should have just made it in with fucking tracks.
He just sets fire to it. I ain't dealing with this shit.
I'm not joking. That's the Russian version. It's literally just one of their old trucks, but with tracks instead of wheels. And this is why they chose tracks, because these fucking idiots chose smooth tires.
Yeah, smooth tires and ice. What could possibly go wrong?
I'll actually send you the article that got me checking this out. Just to get a look. And some of the pictures in it are very cool. I quite enjoy that old like 1950s era black and white photography, especially because you know it's the best they can do. Like they're just trying to explain how like, and there's some like coloured photos in there as well.
I love the picture that you sent me on the article. It's just one guy trying to put chains on. Like that's going to fucking help at this point.
Yeah, they need to put on a second like that second. There's an image that I've sent Dom. That's like just part of the thumbnail for the article, and it is literally just two. They've doubled up the tires at the front to give it a bit more surface area, in the hopes that would help traction, but also put snow chains on it. That was part of their design when they realised the original design just wouldn't work. So yeah, that is our showstopper for today, and I think that wraps up today's show as well. With that in mind, if you'd like,
the snow cruiser actually looks like the landing vehicle from Aliens.
I didn't see that until now, but yeah,
Yeah, kind of looks like it. Maybe James Cameron dug it up and put it in his movie.
wouldn't that be? He does love deep sea diving.
He does, yep.
He's been at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Maybe like grabbing this weird relic of the past might not have been so hard for him.
Yeah, he's got the money.
With that in mind, if you'd like to reach out to the podcast, you can reach out to us on Twitter at Gibberpish, or you can email the podcast at gibberpishpodcast@gmail.com.
Yep.
I've been
Shouldn't it be a government organisation?
working on it. That paperwork is surprisingly tricky, and Boris Johnson is helping no one.
Yep. Bastards getting married and shit.
Moving on.
Read our crayon-covered applications, you dick.
You have the time, clearly.
Time to get married. You're just being lazy now.
But I've been Colin Graham.
I've been Dom Anderson.
And we've been talking Gibberpish. And
I
not
feel like I've
getting
been
married.
shades of Dom Anderson, not fully Dom Anderson.
Shades of Dom. 50 Shades of Dom. Actually, that's just 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, that's 50 Shades of Grey.
Eventually, we do have to start.
At least I have hair.